I actually think primary schools are really good at assessment for learning, and they may not call it that, but I'm sure that's what they're doing. I mean, I think often these things come out almost like government sound bites, and people think, oh, another one, you know, inclusion, oh, another one, standards, oh, let's get on and do the next thing, let's jump on the next bandwagon. Here we've taken the view that we don't jump on bandwagons, we see if there's anything in it for the school and specifically for the children. And I think with AFL, it clearly is a very child-centred approach to learning. There is no point at all in carrying out assessments unless you're going to use them to inform the next steps in children's learning.
Whitchurch First School is a 3-form entry school in the London Borough of Harrow. 64% of pupils learn English as an additional language, and 13% are designated as special needs.
What do you think it is,
A
Alia?
square.
Why do you think it's a square?
Because it has 4 sides.
While they're still in the process of embedding assessment for learning across the whole school, central to their approach is a thorough knowledge and understanding of each individual child as they move through the early years.
You really need to know all the children individually. I think that's the most important thing. You can't plan for learning effectively without knowing the children. Obviously, it is very difficult to tailor for 30 children's different needs, but by knowing the extremes, you can kind of plan for that.
The assessment for learning, I think, should start in the home. Bringing the parents on board with new initiatives, new things happening in the school is part of what we do. What do they think their child likes learning? What do they think their child is good at? Which we do through parent conferencing.
Thumbs up if you thought it went really well. In the middle if you found it a little bit difficult, and thumbs down if you found it really hard.
I've been very fortunate in that I've been able to take my class up from year 1. It's been a great benefit because I actually know the children and I use my formative assessment to inform my planning as opposed to any summative tests that the children have actually taken at the end of year.
Assessment for learning today then. I want you to think, first of all, about what kind of questions you think you ask frequently in class. What sort of questions? Could you categorise the kinds of questions you ask?
What if? What would happen if? What would happen if?
As part of the school's ongoing commitment to developing assessment for learning, they hold regular inset training for new and existing staff.
What kind of questions do you ask? Open. Oh yeah, of course we do. Would anybody give an example of an open-ended question?
What happened next?
What? Oh, nice. What happened next? So that's about imagination and about creating a new ending or a new next point. But you know, there's absolutely shed loads of research that says teachers ask about 300 questions a day. 80 to 90% of them are short, managerial or factual questions.
You do have to think about exactly what you're wanting to get as an answer, and if it is an explanation, then it obviously needs to be an open-ended question, but sometimes you do need a focused answer.
I'm not saying open, brilliant, closed, dreadful at all. All right? The purpose of those questions is for us to shape the learning and to help the children shape their own learning. And I'm going to ask you, you were stuck with something and you wanted help, and somebody gave you more help than you needed.
I know when my husband, we were looking at a map together, I go, but it's there, and all you have to do is do this, this, this and this. And I feel really de-skilled then and frustrated because I would have got there, but I didn't need him to tell me.
Yeah.
But he's not a teacher, so what do you expect?
Research says we're consummate interferers. You know, we intervene too quickly. We dive in. Child stuck, oh, let me help. So, average wait time between asking a question and the next sound a teacher makes? 0.9 of a second.
Can you tell me who it is?
Queen Elizabeth II.
Oh, so it's Queen Elizabeth II. Do you know something? It really looks like Queen Elizabeth II. Why do you think I'm saying it looks like Queen Elizabeth II?
Because Queen Elizabeth II has grey hair.
That's right.
Can anybody tell me why they think this might not be correct? Why might that be correct?
Because it's the wrong way round.
Right, what are the wrong way round?
The 3 and the 5.
The 3 and the 5, what are these called?
Digits.
Well done, Jack. That's excellent. They're called digits.
There's our 4 sides. Yes.
OK, what question could you now ask Maya to find more information? You know it's got
Does it
4
have-
sides.
2 small sides and 2 long sides.
What is it, Maya?
A square.
Is that correct?
Is that correct? Yes, it is.
Oh,
It could have been a diamond.
First thing we think about is our children and where they are. So it's a very child-centred curriculum. So the learning springs from that. We don't have a prescribed curriculum which we expect all the children just to engage in. It becomes an evolving curriculum. The current debate in our staff room is, if we tell the children what they're going to learn, how do we know what they think they're going to learn? And how do we know if they've learnt the thing we think we've taught them?
Right, normally I have something written up on the board. What do I normally have written up on the board for you? Jack? The learning objective. I'm not going to actually have that written up on the board today. I'm going to actually ask you to think about what the learning objective might be for today. So I'm not actually going
In her Year 3 class, Christina Nicola is piloting a different approach to learning objectives, letting the children work out what the learning objectives might be and monitoring how successful this approach is.
Put your hand up if you're ready. You think you've got what today's learning objective might be.
To learn where to put our symmetries.
You're sort of there, Layla. That's not bad. We were making something. What were we making, Layla?
A symmetry pattern.
A symmetrical pattern. So tell me again, what do you think the learning objective might be?
To learn how to make a symmetrical pattern.
To learn how to make a symmetrical pattern. Let's see whether Layla is correct. So our learning objective together is to
understand and be able to draw a pattern.
Okay, let's have a quick look. Hits, miss and maybes. Okay. Lovely smiley face. Put your hand up if that was a hit. Okay. Put your hand up if that is a maybe. And what about miss? Complete miss. Going to need a lot of help. Right, okay. Yes. I will be assessing whether they've understood the learning objective through the marking of their work, and also the hit, miss and maybe strategy that I use. The children can sort of assess themselves whether they actually feel they understood the learning objective, and then whether they feel that they understood the activity. Put up your hand if your hit, miss and maybe answer that you gave me before has changed. Layla, you changed yours, you're saying?
Maybe. And now I'm starting to get a miss.
So you're starting to get a bit of a miss. You were a maybe, now you're going for a miss. Roche?
I started with maybes as well, but now I'm going for hits.
Now you're going for a hit. Fantastic. Tiane?
Quite near the miss, but now I turn to the hit.
To the hit, fantastic. So just a couple that are actually a little bit less sure. Right, okay. Some of the children had actually, perhaps, for want of a better word, gone backwards. So we would like to move forward with that to perhaps asking the children as to why they feel that their answer changed, what they think had happened during the activity to make them change their mind.
Thanks for letting me sit in on the lesson this morning. It was really valuable, very valuable. I've recorded that the children seem very aware of their own personal targets.
Yes.
Before the learning objective was known, so I was really glad it wasn't up there, because if it'd been up there, they'd have all have said the same thing.
That's right, yes.
What would you have done if they had decided on a different learning objective?
If they'd said something completely wrong, we would have talked through why. Why did they think that?
Yeah.
Why did they think that might be? And then I would have probably drawn their attention back to some of the things that we were looking at during the lesson, and then perhaps asked them to think about it again and go back and have you changed your mind now? Do you think the learning objective could be something different? Which is another thing, just have they changed their minds about something in the lesson to what they thought in the beginning?
But do you know, sometimes I think children think they understand when they don't fully understand the concept that they're trying to understand.
Yes.
And towards understanding, you can sometimes go to being a maybe before you become a hit. What are you going to do about that now?
There is the possibility of perhaps moving the children so that perhaps they were with a child of slightly higher ability.
Yep.
So
We expect really, in every year, people review their plans, but within the whole school framework for assessment for learning, through the strategic plan, there is a whole aspect that's in there, which is, we're looking this year, for example, at value added, and we're very keen indeed to see what value we add into the children's learning.
So how did the shape assessment activity go on? How did the children find talking about the properties of shape?
They all did really well. Divya found it quite tricky asking the yes and no questions.
Okay. As a role of assessment coordinator, which I've had for 5 months, it was really the opportunity to have a look to see what do we do in the school to assess the children and track them from entry. Really found that it is a mammoth task, especially when you're coming in and you're just looking at all this information and data and like what does it really all mean. So I created a system whereby there is one format for every class teacher to use, which collates all the information. They can use those assessments in a quantitative form and then see where the next steps for learning are, and then when they assess them again to see who is making progress, who isn't, and use that as assessment for learning.
So we do
How well do you think now you can use this information to inform the learning? Because after all, the assessment's a piece of data that's useful,
yes.
but we now need to use that to plan the next
Well,
steps.
we're moving on, and we've already put the targets into the children's literacy book. So we looked at the targets for writing, but there was a box that you could leave that if you look through their work and they had something additional to what was written down there, you could actually... It's group, but they can put their individual target on there, yes.
Do you think it will inform their learning for the year?
Oh, completely, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already talked about setting targets, and after the half term we're going to spend some time conferencing with the children and actually going to write the targets as we speak to the children, because I think that will be more meaningful for them.
Lots of children that surprised me. Some children have come back from the summer holidays and obviously having known my class before have all of a sudden learned so many new sounds, able to sound out independently. And so for me they've made a massive step, and without that piece of assessment would have already assumed that they wouldn't have made so much progress in the summer.
We found in 2 classes that it's probably the sort of high flyers and the middle attainers that have dropped.
Perhaps they're more complacent about their learning.
That's
than the other
right,
children.
yes.
And perhaps their families are more complacent.
That's
as well.
right.
Maybe for next year we'll put that into our planning to ensure that parents know. Even if we put it in within the report, if I do a letter towards the end of the summer term and say this is what can happen unless you intervene. Jana, what do you think you need to do to get even better at learning?
I need to get better at my writing.
You think your writing is the thing. What about your writing would you like to get better at?
Handwriting.
Femi, what about you? What do you need to get better at learning?
Religious education.
Oh, religious education. We're just starting conferencing with our pupils. That's very much in its infancy. But the few conferences that we've held so far with pupils have shown us that A, it needs to be one-to-one, and B, it needs to be the teacher not saying too much.
I need more practice to learn more words, because most lessons I say, what does that mean? What does that mean? Most lessons. Some words are a bit complicated for me.
It's very important as staff to always be learning ourselves. We can't be a place of learning for children if we're not learning. And if we've got a closed attitude to what learning means, then we won't be able to pass on good messages to our children. Now your teacher's going to be sitting talking to all of you, and she wants to know what you think about your learning. Because when we talk to you about your learning, whose learning is it?
Ours!
Yes.